hope everyone is doing all right today. Before I start, I want to send a shout out to one Mr. Indomitable Michael Tracy, journalist Michael Tracy. I usually call it journalist first because I think he's awesome at what he does. He was on the channel to talk about the Mueller report. I figured go to somebody who's read through the report. I've followed Glenn Greenwald and some of Aaron Matei's work as an analyzer report. But I know Michael Tracy he's a friend of the show, and I've seen him chomp at the bit at the various aspects of this. And if anybody knew the details of it, I knew he would be the person to go to. So, shout out to Michael Tracy. Thank you very much. Tomorrow on Tuesday, we're going to have the Patron Appreciation Show that was supposed to be on Sunday. As I told Tracy was supposed to be on the show, I think Friday, and then initially I think we were set for Sunday. Just because I don't necessarily think Jesus rose on Easter doesn't necessarily mean I don't necessarily have family that does. So, but nevertheless, I want to thank everybody. Please, so bear with us. The show will be on Tuesday. Let's see, is there anything else? I don't think there are any more updates. So let's do the news, at the very least the news that I've been paying attention to. I have several shows that I need to get to today. If I'm being honest, I have something else that I really should be doing today. But the news doesn't necessarily wait, and I have a job to do. This was an awesome interview between Tulsi that's taking place in the background. Tulsi is having a conversation with Baier. There's a factor, you can almost call it a certain degree of reality that pervades, you can say, politics. Well, let's start off with chess. It pervades chess, which is where I come to this at. But it also pervades politics. This thing where you kind of accept reality, where you and your opponent look at reality and say, you know what, I agree with you that this is exactly what reality is. This is functioning in two separate ways in processes. One way I think we agree with that we like, and the second way we probably don't like all that much. Let's take Bernie Sanders. This hill that he doesn't want to die on dealing with issues of Venezuela. So Bernie Sanders would look at mainstream media and say, look, I agree with you that Maduro's a horrible, disgusting dictator, etc., etc., etc. But Sanders would take the secondary tact of saying, but I don't think he should be toppled. That's the honest perspective, but Sanders doesn't necessarily want to engage it purely just by the honest perspective. He feels he needs to, at the very least, acknowledge reality is what reality is, because that's not a hill he wants to die on. What Sanders also realizes is that during the election, one of the attack points are going to be used at him as Venezuela is a socialist country. Bernie Sanders calls himself a socialist, and, he needs to explain this if he's backing up Maduro's, who's a horrible dictator, etc., etc. This is not a perspective that Sanders wants to fight on. Whether or not he's right is besides the point. It's not necessarily something you want to waste your time on, especially when you have other domestic issues that you want to get to. So he accepts reality the way it is with mainstream media, with his opponents, and says, yes, he's a horrible, disgusting dictator. Let's talk about other things. The same thing, however, is true with Bernie Sanders going on Fox News. I wanted Sanders to go on Fox News because my thought is when Sanders goes on Fox News, he's going to rock Fox News. I'm confident in my horse that this is the sandbox. This is where he can go in and he can win voters in areas that aren't necessarily typically friendly to Democratic crowds. What this does, however, is if Sanders rocks it, then what does it mean for the other Democrats that seem to be terrified of going on this thing that the front runner has just established as something that could be done? So what do you have? You have other Democrats who are now saying they want to be on Fox News. One of those Democrats being Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi, like Sanders, is strong on this idea of what she represents. We need to stop these regime change wars. So she goes on Fox News. What did she say on Fox News? She says exactly the same things that she's been saying everywhere else, and she holds her shape. Before we get to her comments on the Venezuela part, I want to get to something that they asked her about Sanders. I have two videos that are going to show on this, the Venezuela part. The North Korea part, but also this part when they're asking her about Bernie Sanders themselves. It's Fox News. Of course, they're going to go with a horse race thing, and of course, they're going to try to find wheat from chaff in regards to the candidates running. There's an aspect to Tulsi running that I love, and one of the reasons why I want her on the debate stage. Tulsi Gabbard forces Sanders to the left on issues of foreign policy. So when she's making this argument about regime change and everything else, Tulsi has been pretty straightforward in what she represents. Whether it's because I have no chance of winning this, so the only chance I have of winning this is going balls out, so this is my perspective, or whether this is just her perspective. Both could be true, to be honest. But if somebody is standing on a debate stage with her and she's engaging on these topics of foreign policy in this way, what is the front runner going to do? Is he going to rebuke her on something that he himself to some degree believes, or is he going to lean more towards her direction? She gives him leeway to pull further to the left on this issue. I want her on the debate stage. I don't think they're competing at all. So, but let's let her answer this question of, why are you running if the guy who you supported last time is already in the race? Let's see, this is at 9:30. All right. And Tulsi Gabbard.
This new Cold War that we are in with ever serving the very real needs that we have in this country.
You know, in the 2016 DNC convention, you said that Bernie was the voice for millions and that you were truly honored to endorse him. So what happened between then and now?
Once again, I announced my candidacy long before Bernie Sanders announced his run. I am not running against him or any other candidate in this country. I am running for the American people.
Sure, but you say that you're better than him.
To serve the American people, serving the American people as President and Commander-in-Chief, and the unique experiences that I just outlined are what I bring to the forefront and make me best qualified to serve as Commander-in-Chief.
Last thing, are you
I like that.
satisfied with
You know, there is a difference between her and Sanders. There just is. Yeah, I do. Degrees and defiance, yes, I do. I think it's the most idiotic point of view of all time. So they're trying to impeach Trump. But just to make a point, there's a difference between her and Sanders in this case. She has been completely and entirely on this point of foreign policy. And God bless her for it. And there's a segment of the left that may feel somewhat wary of Sanders, that look at what she's doing as somewhat of a breath of fresh air. Meaning she says, look, I agree with Sanders on these economic domestic front. What we need to do is focus on foreign policy, because fact of the matter is nothing takes place on the domestic front if you're still paying nearly $1 trillion on your military. She's right. She wouldn't feed into this, into what Fox News is trying to get her to go after Sanders on, even though she kind of make this point that, look, I'm running for the American public. I like the catchphrase. But the honest reality of it is she's not going to hit Sanders. At most, she'd accentuate the differences between them two, which is, I'm here for foreign policy. We need to do something about the way we engage in our foreign policy. You may want to try to get us to go against each other. I am here for foreign policy. Sanders is doing what he's doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm trying to work for the American public. I like that answer. But, you know, the reality of it is she's not going to attack Sanders. Sanders is not going to in any way attack her. And to some degree, she gives him more latitude on issues of foreign policy. I am glad she's on that debate stage. I want her making this particular argument that she just made to Brett Baier on Fox News on a host of issues on that debate stage. So, shout out to Tulsi Gabbard. I would love for Tulsi Gabbard to come on to the soapbox for an interview. I don't bite. I don't bite under normal circumstances. And she would be an awesome guest to interview. But I'll end this here. I'm going to be back on in like 5 minutes because I have another interview queued up immediately after this, dealing with Tulsi Gabbard also. So I'll see you guys in like 5 minutes at the most. Thanks all. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks everyone.